Well, let's get right down to it. And former President John Dramani Mahama has promised to establish farmer service centers in all districts across the country should the opposition NDC secure power in 2024. He says this will provide farming inputs to local farmers and improve their livelihoods. He's been speaking with party members in Woodlands on his tour of the northern region.
Already all the predictions are showing that every year, the Economics Intelligence Unit releases a report, and they have a portion they call Election Watch. And so this year's report in the Election Watch column, they predicted that NDC will win the 2024 election. And it's my hope that we're going to work hard so that when next year's report comes, it will confirm that prediction that 2024 election NDC is going to win. So let's remain united, because united we stand, divided we fall. In unity lies strength. And so if we are united as Woodlands constituency, nobody can defeat NDC in this constituency. I know most people here are farmers. Kokwa banyete. Pompo nyem fertilizer. Alaka bokwa fertilizer pie. Ala. You could give me because you could do that. NDC is coming. We're coming to establish in every district a farmer service center. If you want your fertilizer, you'll get it there. You want a tractor to plow for you, you'll get it there. You want a harrow, you'll get it there. Anything a farmer needs to work, you'll get it there. If you don't have money, it doesn't matter. They'll record it. Then when you harvest and you sell, then the debt at the farmer service center, you go and pay. That's all, and then you prepare for next year. So thank you very much. I'll leave my talk here, and may God richly bless you.
Now, residents of Buana in the Nkoranza North District of the Bono East region are appealing to the government to construct abundant roads in the area. This comes after the community, through a self-help initiative, raised funds from indigents to shape the road network, which is currently affecting general economic development in the area. And Asabit reports.
Buana is a predominantly farming community here in the Nkoranza North District of the Bono East region. Amongst the numerous challenges facing the people here is the terrible nature of the road network connecting the community to its district capital. Residents say the situation is heavily affecting general economic activities of the area. Opening Kofi Apia is a resident here. Our major occupation here is farming, and we produce a lot of cassava and gari, but because our road network is bad, customers who come to buy from us do not show up, and if they do, they charge exorbitant fees as lorry fares. We struggle a lot in getting cars to our community whenever we go to the market or when we are returning from accessing healthcare. The drivers will tell you they won't come because the roads are bad. To the women in this community, their major concern has to do with the fact that patients, particularly pregnant women, go through difficult times when referred to the nearest health facilities whilst in labor. Some have lost their lives en route to the health center due to the terrible nature of the road.
How they will be Buana mine. Obinyama Kwani Yenti, Yaka, Enko.
Due to the bad nature of the roads, pregnant women and labor struggle a lot when referred to the next community. They walk in some cases and some lose their lives or their babies in the process.
e ma bi fam ehwede ne nkwa bi so kura obe wo no wunya wo ba enam nante a wo nam ti e ka so anka obeduru ntem.
Senior high school students are equally affected as they have to walk several hours to school due to the nature of the road. Isa Nafisatu tells me they have to stay home each time it rains because the road is not accessible during rainy days.
When it is rain, the road is bad, so we can't go to school. We will stay home. Then they are learning how for us there. We don't learn.
The road network was awarded to contract in the year 2020. Months later, however, the contractor who was seen working had to leave the site with the excuse that government has not provided the needed funding to aid their work.
The road has been awarded on contract, so we were happy that we were going to see something better. So the contractor came, made the open up from Tanobuasi through Kranka, Buana, Etuyefre. So the contractor was on the road. All of a sudden, the contractor was out of sight. Now, for our investigation, it was reviewed that the contractor has not been given the required amount he needed to do the work, and so he has abandoned the project.
Today, the community, through a self-help project, has been able to raise funds to help shape the road and make it motorable to help save lives. Women in the community were tasked to pay 30 Ghana cedis each as their male counterparts pay 50 Ghana cedis each to aid this cause. Michael Obo is a resident and a former presiding member at the Nkranza North District Assembly.
The whole community met and then decided to pay something. So each person, if you are a woman, you are paying 30 cedis. And if you are a man, you are also going to pay 50 cedis. So it's 50 cedis per man and 30 cedis per woman. So through this contribution, we are able to do something about that. Now we also called our brothers and sisters in diaspora and those living in big cities to come and help. And so with this, we went and then saw one contractor by name Nana Ankuma from Nkranza, and he agreed to help us.
These poor people are calling on government to consider the situation at hand to aid the contractor get back to site to help construct the abandoned road.
We are pleading with the government to find money for the contractor to come and speed up work so that we can also have access to our capital town, Nkranza.
Anas Sabit, JoyNews, Buanai.
Now, the Ghana National Association of Private Schools has accused government of suffocating them with exorbitant charges for the services they provide. They say charges from government agencies such as the National Schools Inspectorate Authority, the National Teaching Council, and the National Council for Curriculum Assessment are crippling low-cost private schools and hindering them from delivering quality education to Ghanaian children. At the celebration of the Ghana National Association of Private Schools Week at Bolgatanga in the Upper East region, the president of the association, Damasis Torsong, said state agencies had to support private schools because of the role they played in the educational sector of the country. Correspondent Albert Sori reports.
The Ghana National Association of Private Schools, JNAPS, was formed to promote and protect the economic and social interests of owners of private schools in the development and management of effective quality schools at all levels of education. Every year, the association has a one-week celebration to discuss and reflect on various issues confronting private schools. This year's JNAPS Week celebration took place here in Bolgatanga, the Upper East Regional Capital. The theme for the celebration was, "Education is a right. Stakeholders must support low-cost private school children." Speaking on the theme, the president of the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, Damasus Torsong, said many private schools in Ghana provide their services at low cost and were not making enormous profits as is often assumed.
According to a USAID report published in 2019, 80% of proprietary schools in northern Ghana establish their schools either out of their zeal for education or to provide a viable alternative to public schools. Obviously, children who attend these schools are from deprived homes. The USA report again says that 92% of children enrolled in low-cost private schools within northern Ghana are either children of farmers or traders.
He said, despite the crucial role low-cost private schools play in educating Ghanaian children, the Ministry of Education, through its agencies, continues to suffocate owners of private schools with exorbitant charges.
Every social intervention policy that targets the poor and the marginalized must be supported by government. So how come government is not assisting low-cost private schools? Perhaps the Ministry of Education and the agencies under the ministry do not seem to appreciate the crucial role of low-cost private schools and private schools generally in educating the Ghanaian child. On the contrary, these agencies, namely the National Schools Inspectorate Authority, NASIA, the National Teaching Council, NTC, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA, are suffocating low-cost private schools with exorbitant charges for providing services, which in some cases ought to be free. In the current harsh economic situation where parents are unable to afford even the extremely low fees charged by these schools, exorbitant charges from various metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies are crippling quality education delivery to children in Ghanaian private schools.
The Ghana National Association of Private Schools, therefore, wants the government to support low-cost private schools in the same way that it supports public schools.
The Ministry of Education must support low-cost private schools in the same way that it assists public schools. Government could even decongest some overpopulated public schools by offloading these children into low-cost private schools and paying a bursary of 100 Ghana cedis per child per term to the proprietors of these schools. This amount, take note, will even be less than how much government spends on these children in the public schools. You will save on your education budget rather than spending them on the public school children in overcrowded classrooms and all of that. We also call on metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies to recognize the fact that low-cost private schools are non-profit entities which must not be charged commercial rates for the properties that they use in nurturing school children.
Reporting for Joy News, Albert Sorry, Bolgatanga.
Head to the Upper West region, where one of the constituencies of the NDC will actually... Now, the contest there is between former General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Titus Kofi Bayo, former Member of Parliament Edward Derry, and research scientist Dr. Emmanuel Panyang. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports on the primary there.
The Lambuse constituency parliamentary seat before 2008 was a preserve of the National Democratic Congress, NDC. The party has won the parliamentary seat back-to-back for 16 years in 4 elections beginning in 1992. Businessman John Dow Baloro of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, however, surprised the pundits and connoisseurs of the political game and broke the jinx in 2008. He represented the people of Lambuse for only one term. John Dow Baloro was defeated in the 2012 general election by a then political rookie, Edward Derry. He also stayed in parliament for 2,920 days before being defeated by former district chief executive of Lambuse, John Yelvele Baligi. To sum it up, that Lambuse constituency parliamentary seat for the last 13 years has been swinging between the MPP and the NDC. A first-time parliamentary aspirant and former General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Tatius Kofi Beyo, however, disagreed.
We gave it out as a gift to MPP. We should never have lost the last election. So I am confident that anytime NDC is organized, united around the umbrella, there is no contest. We will take our seat. Even when we lost the seat last year, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had over 70% of the vote. How can this be a swing constituency? It should tell that something was not right. NPP has won this seat only twice, and none of them have they gone beyond 4 years. So this is a message to the current MP. He should do his best and do his parting notes and be preparing to hand over, because we are...
Before he gets a nod to represent the party, the 41-year-old consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and senior lecturer of the University of Ghana Medical School has to clear the first hurdle by winning the party's primaries. He stated that, given the opportunity, he will rebrand the party and give it the needed quality leadership it requires.
Look at Lambuse. We remain the only district without an inch of tarred roads. Look at our party office. It is nothing to write home about. We have to do this address outside because of the sheer heat, lack of a light, and anything in the party office. Dr. Beyo is coming on some basic principles. First, to revive, retool, and revamp our party. In the coming days, we are going to resource the party from all the branches through to the constituency level and get our party to work. We are going to rebrand the NDC in Lambuse to become a party that will win elections in perpetuity. And it will be a strong and vibrant force to reckon with. The next thing we are going to be looking at is our health sector. I think my involvement in the health sector in Lambuse is known to all of you.
Now, to cap off the news, legend says a deity, Penchotu, led the people of Simpa from Timbuktu to their present settlement. It is a reason indigents of Winneba celebrate the Aboakyir festival. That festival was climaxed over the weekend with the catching of the deer. Here's a report by Jacqueline Ansomayabua.
The Aboakyir festival is celebrated annually every first week of the month of May with several activities. The Friday preceding the hunt is spectacular for Aboakyir. Two groups, Tiafo and Dentifo, parade the town with their gods along selected routes in turns to prevent clashes. Asafo groups disperse at the end of the day to prepare for the actual hunt the following day. The Asafohene of the Dentifo group, Theophilus Kojohom, reveals his group's preparedness for the hunt on Saturday.
By God's grace, we are done with the carrying of God, which is simply to purify the town and the people as well. What happens tomorrow is the day that we are going to the bush and make sure we come down or we come out successfully with a deer. So that is what we are waiting for. Tomorrow, the Trafo as a company will leave earlier around 5:30, and then we, the Dantifo as a company number 2, will leave around 6 o'clock.
It's Saturday, the day of the official hunt. The young and able set off into the forest to hunt for the deer. When a catch is made, a message is sent to the people in town, sparkling jubilations. More people troop into the Durbar grounds for a glimpse of the catch. However, this customary practice has long been shelved because sometimes the date could fall on or soon after the Christian Easter celebrations, resulting in difficulties and inconveniences for some of the would-be festival attendants. It is one of the most prominent festivals, which is celebrated with much zest and panache in the Efuti community. Jacqueline Ansuma Yebwe's report for Joy News.
And on that deer-catching note, we cap off the news. But up next, we're joined by Kweku Paintsel, a lawyer, for the news review. Do stay. Thank you for staying. Time now for the news review. And shortly, we'll be joined by Kweku Paintsel, a lawyer. I have an interesting thought for him this morning as we kickstart the news review. But the segment brought to all of us by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, they're located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Aboakyir behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zima. I'm sure you'd like to pick up your phone and give them a call. These are the numbers to call: 0244 867 068. 0244 867 068. You could also call 0274 234 321. 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But only the beginning of the news review. And Kweku Paintsel joins the conversation. A very good morning to you, Mr. Paintsel.
Good morning.
It's really good to have you. It's been a while since we had a conversation, so we're grateful to have you this morning. Before we get into the newspapers, there's a legal issue that all of us have been talking about. It has to do with Al Jazeera's response to Mr. President. I'm sure you've seen that response where they've refused to retract or apologize to the president. And it's been put forward. Our very own Samson Lade Anyenini has made a point of the fact that if the president wants to pursue this in his capacity as an individual, as a person, instead of the presidency, he can go ahead and do that. But in an instance like this, what do you think? Would it be apt? Would any results be secured if the president were to toe that line? What do you make of it?
Well, I think Al Jazeera as a news media organization, they have a right, as they say, if they do not want to apologize, because what they do is they put all the information there. And if you consider yourself to have been defamed in any particular way or manner, of course you've got your rights, notwithstanding the fact that you are the president. I mean, you've got your rights as an individual. But as a matter of fact, I personally would not even advise the president if I had opportunity to advise him, because in the first place, of course, he's a politician. Politicians, all kinds of things come swinging at them. And I'm not too sure that you can have the opportunity, if you really want to, respond to each and every allegation of facts and misstatements that are made. And I think the president has done all that any responsible president ought to do, which is to call on them publicly, challenging them as to the particular allegations that they made. And the public the result is now with the jury, which is the public. We all can make our own judgment based on these two publications. And I honestly believe that the president has discharged his obligations. And if Al Jazeera say they will not respond, we would, as Ghanaians, make our own judgment, which is that on this occasion, when the president had challenged them explicitly to come out with the specific aspects of their publication, linking him directly to, I don't know what name to give this gentleman. They've got all kinds of names these days. But then Al Jazeera have refused to come out to, hone it down. So that ends the discussion as far as I'm concerned.
Well, interesting take there. Let's get into the newspapers now, starting with the Daily Graphic, Mr. Paintsel. 3-story buildings collapsed in a week, and that is reminiscent of some things that we've seen in this country. Fears there's lack of supervision. In one of them, we're told the person didn't have a permit to put up another floor, but the person successfully did that, and then it came crashing. In fact, just a few months ago, this very year, I was somewhere in cantonments with some prominent military figure. And of course, it had to do with something private. I get to this place and all of a sudden we heard something like a missile striking. I would know about a missile striking because, yes, I've been in a war before. So this person who is a military person and I who am, a civilian, we both felt, whoa, what is that? We only went outside to find out that an entire building, and I took videos of this. I couldn't get too close because there was security there and they wouldn't allow it. I took videos, I took a photo, an entire portion of a building that was being constructed in cantonments just fell. And I didn't get inside to find out whether there were workers there, whatever had happened. But obviously, in terms of systems, we have a lot of problems in this country. I'll get into that story shortly so you can share your thoughts on it. Stroke cases rising among young people. This too on page 13, another very worrying medical development. And it is true. I know people, very young people, who have succumbed to strokes and all of that. I would just say in that respect that take care of yourself, watch the pressure at work, and let's face it, many people doing different kinds of work, high pressure work. Just take care of yourself. If you have to get a massage at some point, get it, relax the tension in your body. Try to take some supplements, eat well, work out. These are all things I try to apply myself. Not 100%, but I try. So I'm putting it out there because too many young people are succumbing to death, BP, and all of that. And of course, BP is also tied to your blood pressure. High blood pressure is also tied to getting a stroke. Graphic Lands Ministry Dialogue. Experts explore natural resource challenges. And Jospon Group goes green. So let's start with that banner headline story. Policymakers, experts, and other stakeholders in the natural resource sector will converge on Accra this week for a national dialogue aimed at promoting the sustainable management of the country's natural resources. The two-day dialogue, organized by the Graphic Communications Group Limited in partnership with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, will explore ways of tackling challenges confronting the land, mining, and forestry sectors to ensure optimal use of those resources. On the theme, harnessing our natural resources responsibly for our sustainable collective good, the dialogue scheduled for Thursday, May 11 and Friday, May 12 this year at the Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel. We'll also look at innovative ways of protecting the environment from destruction. Let me just, on that particular point, Mr. Painter, when you look at the destruction that we've seen in recent times, it is clear over the last few years that Galamsey, for example, has exacerbated the plight of our environment. Our waters are more turbid, they are dirtier, they are murkier. It's going to be even more difficult for the Ghana Water Company Limited to process such water for our drinking. The food we're consuming, only God knows what amounts of mercury and cyanide are in them, because a lot of these places are farming communities where side by side Galamsey is going on. So what do you make of this challenge that we are facing in terms of the Galamsey menace? Has government done enough? What do you think about the Professor Frimpong Boateng report?
Sometimes you can't talk about some of these issues without some sadness, because Ghana is a country endowed with intellectual abilities, all manner of specialists. We've got all kinds of reports. We've got all kinds of meetings. This meeting is going to be a meeting about meetings. I believe there are all kinds of reports that are already there. The issue with this, our country, is enforcement. It's not like we don't even have the laws. The laws are there. Laws on everything. But we have, I don't know how to call it, but it's like we have politicized everything in this country to the point where we have all become ineffective in enforcing the laws that we have. Because using this Galamsey only as an example of what we are doing in this country. Come on. We have a whole government, we have a whole president who staked his very presidency on an issue. And it's like now, what happened to the soldiers who went in there? What happened to all of these things? So I'm sometimes very frustrating talking about these things, because like we know what to do, but nobody's doing it. Nike, what did they say? Say, just do it. Just do it. And it's amazing that nobody wants to put himself to the specific task of ensuring. Look at Professor Frimpong Boateng's report apparently had been there for 2 years. Then all of a sudden, there's a hula baloo and there's all kind of things that have now arisen because somebody leaked it as if this report did not even exist. Can somebody in the name of Jesus Christ tell us, between the time the report was lodged 2 years ago and now that we are doing all these things, what happened to that report? For all practical purposes, the report was shelved. It's as simple as that. And therefore, if we cannot get at some point and demonstrate that we're really working on what we know, it's not that we don't know. Some of these conferences and all of these things, yeah, I mean, we respect, when we're in the university, there was this joke about the university they set up a committee and the committee comes out a report and they set up a committee to study the committee's report and another committee is set up to study how to implement another committee. So we have a committee system. That's what is happening. That is what is happening in this country. Committee systems of doing things and nothing gets done at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the king is naked and we all know. So, I mean, from my perspective, it's about action. If this committee or this meeting is being called, let them put together all the reports that are there. Let them share all these reports. Let us all see what is contained in it. And then it requires executive action. I said executive action. Let everybody be involved. The police have got powers. We've got a whole natural resources, our natural whatever ministry. We've got ministers. We've got all of these things. So, I mean, I'm sorry that sometimes when I talk about some of these things, it's like we are not a serious people. It's a very simple thing as that. Every country they've lost. We are going to get into this construction business. And you will tell me when was the last time that anybody was prosecuted for this recurring event. So, my dear sir, I mean, if I'm not careful, I'll become a politician myself on this your show. I have the intention, not the desire to be one. But it's lack of, even if there's a political will, we are talking about political action. It's as simple as that. Very simple, yes.
And it's interesting, even as you talk about that, because these three multi-story buildings that collapsed over the weekend, and this is just within the spate of a week, have raised concerns about the rigidity of the building laws, stringent supervision by supervising authorities, as well as adherence to the best practices for safety by contractors. Those are the very points you're making mention of. So who is ensuring the building laws? Who is ensuring stringent supervision? And who is ensuring that best practices for safety by contractors are being implemented? In one instance, they weren't supposed to put up another floor, but they did. So the question is, who was supervising that? Those are the major issues.
Yeah, nobody implements them. It's the Ghana, you'll be amazed to know the kind of laws that we have in this country. I mean, you can't imagine. We've got a law on just about everything. Now, beginning, don't forget that the starting point at the district assemblies, they've got a planning department. Oh man, you go there, the laws are there. Even the layout of our cities, the layout of village, the layout, they're all there. The same people collude with developers who flout every regulation and people build where they want to build and so forth and so on. And this, listen, if you take a corporate national building regulation, legislative instrument, you'll be amazed at the details of how concrete even must be mixed, how everything. I'm not an architect, but those who are in the business will know. But who goes around to ensure that these things are done? Nobody does it. Besides, ask yourself, when was the last time that anybody was prosecuted in this country for doing this type of shoddy works? Because I read over the papers, for instance, that yesterday or the day before, in Tamale, UDS campus, a 6-story building had also collapsed. And so people collect money, they don't do the work, they do shoddy work. I am concluding, I'm not even assuming, I'm concluding that these are the result of shoddy work. It's as simple as that.
Shoddy work. Let's look at the issue about health very quickly. I just want to put the data out there because Ghana is strangely, or maybe not so strangely, looking at the sedentary lives most people are living, looking at the lack of exercise, looking at the fast food and everything. I'm not denigrating any type of food, but we all know the consequences. And no exercise. We know what happens. Ghana is recording more cases of strokes among young people of 40 years and below. And I've seen it more than once. The acting program manager of the non-communicable diseases of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Aboakyir, has revealed. Now, the stroke cases, she said, were triggered by uncontrolled hypertension that had become common in young people in the country recently. With all the pressure, why won't that happen? Dr. Kwame said, although stroke cases were previously recorded mainly in people aged between 80 and 90, local hospitals were now recording them in people as young as 35 years and 40-year-olds, most of them resulting from uncontrolled hypertension. She said averagely, the country recorded around 600,000 cases of hospital visits every year by people with hypertension. If you have such a group, high number, eventually some of them, if care is not taken, are going to succumb to the likes of strokes. On the back page, Samatex beat Hearts with Seidu strike and Tete's late goal denies Kotoko victory. Any final thoughts on these before we move to the next paper?
Well, on the health issue, I believe it's got more to do with education. It is education, education, education. Everything that we're doing has changed. I grew up in a village where the lifestyle was different. I came into the city and everything that we're doing from eating to everything has changed. Unfortunately, we are not being told the implications of these changes to our lifestyle, particularly even the food that we eat, the drinks that are on the market. More of them, like they are colored water with sugar. And all that we do is to consume and gulp them down. Fast food, we call them, we take them down. It's about time that links are drawn between all of these things and the market. Everybody has got a role. The Standards Authority, the kind of drink that we drink. Sometimes you put some of these things are put on social media, and you are really wondering whether the facts contained in those reports are true about the effect of even these things that we eat. Now, the Ghanaian is also a magical figure. I mean, we hear of all kinds of contaminations. People who sell honey, they mix all kinds of it in it. People who sell oil, they mix all kinds of things in it. And you see,
Sudan dye and all of that.
We can do all of these things without these things having effect on us as Ghanaians. The Bible says what you sow is what you reap. So as a country, it's fast money. It's not only fast food. It's about fast money. And it doesn't even matter what you do in order to get money. Recently, I read in the papers about some fish that have been exported, which are now stuffed with all kinds of things. We're hearing about people who are using some mortuary, whatever, to use as a substitute for sugar in things like buns bread and all those kind of things. I would not know which of these things contribute to what. But so therefore, we've come to a point where, number one, even our very lifestyle has changed, and therefore, people ought to know the impact of these things on our health. And so I'll go back to education. We all pretend we are so busy that we don't even have time to go to hospital. When we were young, we didn't have to go to hospital. Many years ago, nobody needed to go to hospital because everything was guaranteed. The food that you ate, you were sure of what you were eating. Today, you can't be sure of anything that you eat. So as for that, I think the recommendation, the little that I know, is that we are being advised that on a regular basis, at least every 1 year, somebody should check into a hospital, not because he feels sick, but because he wants to check up, what we call checkup. If for a middle class person, you hear me and you can understand what I say, don't go on and on and on because you drop dead. These days, people are dying in their sleep. Asafo Apeprese, who's a good friend of mine, within the last 1 month or so, he died in sleep. I'm getting reports of young men, a lot of young men, young women, dying in their sleep. That is to say, they went to bed without being sick, and they woke up either in hell or heaven. So that's what befalls, or that's what awaits all of us. If we do not at least take these elementary steps of checking our own health status, by walking in, sometimes too late by the time that you are taking in sick.
And that is
of this. Yes, so that's my own take on
this. That is the major concern. A lot of the time, by the time we start heading to the hospital, you know, there's also a problem because yesterday I was discussing this. Someone has a medical issue, and you usually would see people wait. Let's pray about it first. God knows about prayer, and He also. I mean, there are things where the miraculous happens, and God heals someone through some amazing way. That is there. But he's also given us science. He's given us thinking caps. Even in the days of Jesus, they still employed medicine. Some would also use some other remedies. I'm not trying to demonize herbal remedies, because all of these antibiotics and others have, natural sources as well. Sometimes there are chemical components that are added. But the point is, go to the hospital. If it's a herbal remedy, now some of the hospitals are even accepting that. The major hospitals, they'll direct you that, seek this help as well. Though usually they will tell you not to mix them. But people would go through the local route where many of these herbal practitioners are not even licensed. You can't guarantee anything. I remember a hospital in Koforidua. I had a relative who was ill many years ago. And I saw this young man. If you've ever seen parched land, that, when land cracks, it's so dry that there are cracks in the land, visible cracks when you go to certain parts of the world. That's how his skin was. Apparently, he had some type of fever. Someone gave him a herbal remedy. And I think he was allergic to something in there. It broke his skin out from head to toe like that. And pus was oozing out of it. It was terrible. And he died eventually. So that is my caution as far as that is concerned. Seek medical help immediately. But the Ghanaian Times newspaper this morning, very interesting stories I want us to take a quick look at. Tragedy hits police. Senior officer runs amok, shoots dead junior colleague. And senior police officer who allegedly shot dead his junior colleague in the Western North region was last Friday arrested by the police. The suspect, reportedly identified as Assistant Superintendent of Police Franklin Sia, head of Western North Police Intelligence Unit, was said to have shot Constable David Bati while on their way for an assignment at Awaso in the Bibiani and Hwiaso Bekwai municipality. The Ghanaian Times gathered that the suspect allegedly engaged in an argument with a subordinate while in the service vehicle they were using, resulting in the tragedy. So his boss couldn't contain himself, and this was what happened. Then a farmer has sued to stop LGBTQ plus bill passage until. So a farmer, Paul Buamasifa, has filed a suit seeking an order restraining the Speaker of Parliament from proceeding with any processes related to the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021, which also is referred to as the LGBTQ plus bill. The suit suggested that the process should not take place until the statutory provisions of Section 101 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, are complied with. Interesting times. And just to cap it off with the Ghanaian Times, Ghanaian woman stabbed to death in the UK. 31-year-old. She was stabbed to death in London in the United Kingdom, according to the Metropolitan Police. Joanita Kosiwa Dugbe was reportedly stabbed in broad daylight by a stranger in Brixton's Stockwell Park Walk on May the 1st, 2023. She was the founder of the Odette Foundation, a charity that works with people suffering from sickle cell in Ghana and Togo. May the Lord grant her peace. Any reactions? The police officer, the farmer suing
I'll talk
to stop
about
the
the
bill.
police officer because it ties in with lots of reports that we are receiving over the last 2-3 weeks about people killing others due to some disagreement, some anger. Let me tell you what, I've had opportunity of visiting the Nsawam prison a few times. And if you go there, out of the people, I'm talking about the inmates, those on death row for having killed and so forth, based on my own appreciation of my interaction with them, out of every 10 of them, about 6 or 7, they committed a crime of passion, something that in the heat of an anger, argument, somebody takes something, hits another, and that's the end of it. And these things were not planned. And therefore, you'll be amazed. We walk about in town, everybody assumes that we are sane, everybody is sane. But listen to me, talking to you as a lawyer, talking to you as a Ghanaian, I want people to appreciate how they react when they are in anger. There's something else where they call anger management. It is done at a very early stage when small things come up they prescribe anger management. People think that they are themselves. They are not. And it's important because we all go through life. We all come under all kinds of pressure. But different people react differently. And it's about the training that they receive. Look at it, is it the Oscars or whatever, last year where Chris Rock and whatever, that altercation.
Will Smith, right.
How many people can take that slap with all the people there without reacting? When I read a letter report that the Chris Rock that he gave, he said it's about his training. It's about training. Even though the reasons he gave may not be the best, he claims that he was trained at home. That, I mean, it don't make white people happy by doing certain things. I mean, that may be called racist in some other language. But the point of the matter is that that training that he had received, whatever the object was, assisted him greatly in that moment. It's about time that parents have discussion with their children, children have discussions among themselves. Indeed, Ghanaians have a discussion on how to manage anger when these things arise. Nobody has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend is whatever. So therefore, what do? You go and cut it. I mean, there are many of them around. People must understand that life will go on, and therefore, they don't do these things in passion. The time that they are angry, they are human beings, they are not animals. This is about what our sociologists will come up to tell us. We have a whole department of sociology in the University of Ghana. We have a whole department of psychology in the University of Ghana. We've got all kinds of, specialists around this area. And therefore, it's about time that they let their impact be felt. It's about time that they come out with things that Ghanaians must know, every individual. These are things about, our social reality. And it's something that we must deal with as an issue, as a country. Yesterday or thereabout, in the US, the Surgeon General was talking about loneliness. It's now, they define it as a sickness, a form of sickness in the US now, because it affects so many people and their implications of faith for their social, whatever, budget and so forth and so on. So maybe it's about time that we recognize that these crimes of passion that people are committing in the heat of anger, in the heat of whatever, what has got a senior police officer? It shows the level of his training. What did he get whilst he was being trained with the use of the gun? People buy guns and all that they know is how to shoot, but not when to shoot, and so forth and so on.
Right.
So maybe the police department, I'm talking about the Ghana Police Service, it's about time. I don't know what kind of training that they give to people at the time that they come to license their guns. I do not know. I doubt it if they take them through a psychological and sociological and all those kind of things. But please, let me recommend this myself. I have told myself that anybody who buys a gun will use it one day. Anybody. If you bought a gun with a view to using it on an armed robber, and when the armed robber is not around, you turn it on your wife. You will turn it. You remember G-Man?
Yeah.
He had a gun. You know how he used it. So I'm being honest with you. I'm safer without a gun. And I'm telling you, I'm safer without a gun.
Right.
Those who have guns, tell them they will use it one day. But when and how they use it will become an issue for them to resolve.
I think the point on education is crucial. Just to cap off the news review, the Daily Guide, 2 GPHA, that is the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, manager killers busted and investigations ongoing as far as that is concerned. Blows in NDC of Osuampa for drags Asiedun Ketia to elders. There's been talk about the fact that he says vilification and unethical practices were used by Asiedun Ketia, and so he's taking him on. Economy Times says unemployment situation to worsen amidst implementation of new taxes, and Guta has been speaking to that issue. Finally, workers paid low slavery salaries. Over 502,855 workers are paid 500 Ghana cedis or less. The reason retirees receive low pensions. That is from data from SNIT. Any quick reaction to any of these, right?
Talking about low wages in Ghana, sometimes totally unbelievable. I've had people who tell me, it's like standard in the education sector and private schools and whatever. People have finished SS and whatever they're teaching, they receive 300 cedis a month. And I wonder what they use that 300 for. And like I said, my take-home pay cannot take me home. I cannot totally. I mean, I cannot understand. I even wonder what it is that makes them do the kind of things. Because first and foremost, obviously, there's more labor on the market than even the market itself can absorb. And what it means is that these practices have arisen. And we have a law, or government as a policy about minimum wage. And I think that the thing we do in this country, I don't know how we do it. There's a disconnect between everything that we do.
Right.
We have government that pays people who feed students at 97 pesos, so they claim, a day. And I don't know how it's done. The allocation that they give to the prison service and whether to feed prisoners in a day, if you hear the figures, it's like a joke. So I do not know how, as a country, we can have a policy to pay people for next to nothing and somehow expect them to live. I mean,
and that's the point. That's the point that has been made. We've run out of time, but that's the point that has been made, that government pretends to pay workers, or employers pretend to pay workers, and the workers also pretend to work. But thank you so much, Kweku Paintsel, for joining us for the review this morning. Kweku Paintsel is a lawyer. This segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, offering you free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Locate them in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronom Aboakyir behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Siama in Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. In sports, we'll be telling you about the local league, Hearts and the Samatex bit, as well as Kumasi Asante Kotoko failing to win. Manchester United also yesterday losing as well. We'll bring you all the details in sports. Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to get into our big stories. The first of them, well, members of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum say they will resume picketing at the Ministry of Finance today to further demand payment of all their outstanding coupons and principals. We'll hear from them this morning as we interact with convener of the group, Dr. Edu Anani Entry. Dr. Entry, a very good morning to you, sir. Hello, Doc. If you can hear me, please unmute. Good morning.
Yeah, I've unmuted already.
It's good to have you. Now, this has been coming for some time now. You had interactions with the Ministry of Finance when initially your coupon payments did not materialize. Then there were agreements between you and government in terms of a certain window of operation. That was up to the end of April. The month of May has started. What exactly is the posturing of your group as of now?
Well, the short story, so we have.
Doc, I lost a bit of what you were saying there. So if you could just start over for me, I'd be grateful.
Okay, I'm saying the long and short is that we've tried all that we have to do to ensure that we get our payments, but that has not been coming. We've written letters, we have sent all that we have to do to the Ministry of Finance. It's not coming. And so we gave the ministry up to 28, that was still not paid.
Right.
And then we informed the police that we're starting our picketing today. And we have gotten, we are ready now to start the picketing from today.
And that's substantially
for the payment of the outstandings.
That effectively was what I was referencing. I think the 21st, then the 28th, those agreements you arrived at. I think we even had a conversation and you mentioned that you had not necessarily extended to that date, but there had been a confab per the release by the Ministry of Finance. You agreed, you consented to the 28th. But have you received any communication at all in terms of why the payments have not been made?
No, not at all.
Have you heard at all from the Finance Ministry? Because I know at a point you were interacting with the deputy as well, Abena.
That was on the 17th of April when we reaffirmed our 28th deadline.
And you're confirming here that since that time, there's been no further interaction, at least from the end of the finance ministry to your group?
17th of April, we haven't had any interaction whatsoever.
I have a question for you. Now, on the back of picketing the first time, the only thing maybe you secured was the decision by government to exempt you. But that exemption, so to speak, has not yielded any results, because what you were hoping to get, your coupon payments, principals, and all of that, have not materialized. You have not secured that. Would you say that using that same route, going back to picket, just hold on, would you say that going back to picket at the Ministry of Finance would yield anything better, do you think?
Yes. We will be there until, just as we were there, submit.
I've been losing you again. Please make that point. You say you'll be there again.
Just as we were there until the exemption was granted us. Once we started, we will be there until the payments are made.
I see. No matter how long it takes?
No matter how long.
So if this extends into a year, are you telling me that your members are willing to keep picketing?
Yes.
That is an interesting dynamic. What if government simply didn't have the resources? Because there are those in the public space who have questioned. Government, through the finance minister, said they had the resources to cater to the coupon payments. But now some are questioning that. We don't have the IMF deal yet. And while some say that we could get it this month, there is no black and white when it comes to that. If it turns out that the finances or the funds are simply not available, what would that mean to your group?
I didn't get the end.
So I'm saying that if it turns out that the funds are simply not available to make payments to your group, what then happens? Are you going to still continue picketing?
I think I have advised. I've said that government can borrow from the treasury bill market and pay us.
You want government to borrow from the treasury bill market to pay you?
Bill market and pay us, yes, because government is borrowing from the same treasury bill market to pay people who are holding the treasury bills when it matures.
The country is in dire economic straits. We're going to the IMF. You want further borrowing, especially when government has been asked to tone down, tame itself when it comes to borrowing?
This is life and death. And you recall that the president once said, if you can't bring the debt from back, but you can bring the economy back. If you don't pay these pensioners, they will die because they cannot get their medication. You can't bring them back. So just as the government, the president said, take the treasury bill and pay these pensioners so that they will not die. Let the economy, our debts rise a little. We can bring it back. We can bring the life of the dead back.
I am very sensitive to the elderly and pensioners and what you're going through. But let's face it, this would be like robbing Peter to pay Paul, because in the end, taking from the treasury bill market could also have consequences which could also affect other people. Now, I go back to where we find ourselves economically. Would that be prudent?
It will be. I'm saying it is life and death. Just as when we sell our properties to take care of the sick in the society. If it hasn't happened to you before, you don't know. People have sold their property to take care of their wives, their health, their husbands, life and death. So when it comes to the point that you need money to save a soul.
If you need money to save a soul.
Pensioners need their money for them to live. So if you borrow and it will slightly increase your debt, it is better to do that and save the lives of these pensioners.
Paint a picture for me, Doc. I know you've already started on the trajectory of telling us some people have to borrow money to purchase medication. I remember we spoke to a 70-plus-year-old who himself was in very tricky waters as far as this is concerned. But what are some of the stories, the current stories you're hearing from members of your group in terms of why securing these coupons is crucial for them at this point in time. What are some of the stories you can share with us before we
we've heard that some people are even now rationing their drugs. If you are supposed to take the drugs every day, and because you don't have the money, you are taking it every 3 days, I believe your sickness, your disease would go up. The level, you will deteriorate, and that will lead you to your grave. If you are not getting the money to go and be on your dialysis, you are supposed to go three times a week, and people have started going once a week. Then you know they are itching closer to their grave. That is what is happening.
Now, if the finance ministry were to seek some sort of engagement with you today and come to some conclusivity on a clear timeline for payment, would you still pick it? If you were contacted this very morning concerning that situation, would you still go ahead to pick it?
We will cross the river when we get there.
So in other words, if there is some communication, if there is some word from the finance ministry, you are willing to jaw with them?
That's what I'm saying. We will cross the bridge when we get there.
Right. Your numbers, we had some prominent citizens, former vice chancellors, lecturers, former academics. We even had the former chief justice, a former chief justice, join your group. What are your expectations today as you go back to picketing in terms of numbers, membership? What are you expecting?
Well, we have agreed that we are picketing, and the members who are available will be there.
So no matter the number, you are going to sustain this. What are your projections? For as long as this takes, you say you're willing to go, but what are your projections? Is this going to be an every other day thing, an everyday thing, a once a week thing?
Every day, between 10 and 11.
Every day, between 10 and 11?
Yes.
Interesting question. Looking at the age dynamics, the health dynamics of all of you who are going to be there, is that practical? Or are you going to run a rotational system where maybe some come today and others come tomorrow? How are you going to do that?
You know, these are elderly people, so sometimes you don't expect them to be there always.
Exactly why I'm asking this.
The individual. Sometimes you come today, you are unable to come because of some medication. You rest, and you come the next day. So we have a way that we will still have people to be there every day.
Finally, Dr. Anani Antwi, you have the platform now. You could address Mr. President. You called on him the last time to speak to the finance minister. You could also address the finance minister. What would be your charge to them this morning on the back of the non-payment of your coupons?
Well, it's simply just find money to pay these pensioners. They need the money to buy their medication so that they can live.
Thank you, Dr. Edu Anani Antwi, and we wish you all the best. Hopefully you get what you want. He is convener of the pensioner bondholders group, and of course they are saying on the back of the non-payment of their coupons and the principals as well, they are going to start picketing again at the finance ministry starting today. And you heard him. He says no matter how long it takes, they're going to continue. Even if it's a year, they're going to be there. They're going to run a sort of rotational system because of age, health issues, but someone will be there to picket every day. And that is quite an interesting picture. With us today, we have a conversation with someone who is into communications. In fact, she has done that over the last 20 plus years. At a point, she was communications coordinator for the Afrobarometer between 2009 to 2013. Now she talks more about citizenship matters, democracy, our constitution and more. I'm talking about none other than the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, in the person of my own good old friend. It's been a while. Kathleen Addy. Hello, Kathleen.
Hi.
It's been forever.
It's been forever, but it's good to see you again.
What our dog me and I'm in a dog.
It's not for me to me dog with that.
I think the last time I saw you, you came to our office and you were having some engagements.
Yes.
You've been pretty hands-on in your approach. But I noticed since June last year, you took over from Josephine Nkrumah as the chairperson in full from deputy.
Yes.
What has the experience been like?
Well, thankfully, I came to the job prepared because prior to becoming chair, I had worked as the deputy for a number of years. Yeah. So thankfully, I was well prepared to take up the position. It's a complex job, and it's very difficult to see the complexity or to even explain the complexity. And so coming at it from a position where I'd been exposed to the inner workings of the commission and I'd been here, know the people and all of that before becoming chair was a huge advantage for me. And so has made it really giving me a bit of a soft landing, you know, even though, you know, we all have our problems, but it's been great because of that.
Right. So the experience, obviously, I recall there were times when we were talking about the Constitution, taking it bit by bit in my former place.
We did that for a while.
Yeah.
We did that for a while. I mean, the Constitution, we talk about it like we talk about everything else, and it seems like one of those things. It's fairly abstract to a lot of people. And people say, amend the Constitution, change the Constitution. You ask them and they haven't even looked at it. They've barely opened the page. But it really is the thing that ties us together. Right. Because otherwise, everybody will have their own idea about how to run their affairs. Every community will have their own set of rules as to how to run their, you know, their communityship or whatever. But the Constitution makes us a nation, you know. Right. It gives us the rules that cut across everybody, and everybody has to live by those rules and guidelines. So it is a very important document, you know, and it is the pillar on which our democracy stands, and we must take it more seriously.
I guess we have to find a way of making the Constitution, I don't know whether more accessible, and we'll be focusing on the Constitution and whether to amend or not. Okay. Usually people would want to focus on Article 71 and this and that, but when you start talking about the preamble to the Constitution, you read it, it talks about the aspirations of the people. Yes. Some would say that, look, since 1992, segueing into 1993, when it actually took off till now, because the birth of the NCC actually came along with the start of the Fourth Republic. So it's been just about 30 years.
Yes.
After that protracted length of time, sometimes have the aspirations of the people changed. 30 years is enough to capture a generation or two. Absolutely. But we'll get into that context. Okay. First off, I want to find out, what is the core mandate of the NCCE? There are so many things that if you were to hit the streets now and ask people, someone would probably ask, "Enosi Eden." So tell us, what is the core mandate of the NCCE?
Some will probably ask Enosi Eden, and some will say that NCC is responsible for absolutely everything that goes wrong because we did not teach the people. So our mandate primarily is to propagate the Constitution, get Ghanaians to understand it and live by it. That's our primary mandate. Subsequently, beyond that, we are supposed to work to entrench the democracy. Every time I answer this question, I have to remind the listeners of where we have come from. At the time that we started working towards a Fourth Republic, we had been under military rule for a while. And a whole generation had only known a military rule. And so going from military rule to a democracy overnight, literally overnight, is a bit of a culture shock because the rules of engagement are completely different in the two systems. And wisely, there were those who wrote the Constitution, the people who put the Constitution together, thought it wise, you know, to set up this institution because somebody needs to teach the democracy. Nobody's born a Democrat. Nobody's born a good citizen. Nobody's born waving any particular flag. All these things are taught. And so wisely they thought, let's have an institution whose sole mandate is to ensure that this democracy does not fall the way, and this republic does not fall. The Constitution is not overthrown, you know, as it had happened in the past, because we do have a history as a country. You know, the Fourth Republic is the Fourth Republic because the first three republics were overthrown. So all of this thinking went into the setting up of the institution, and I think that it was a very smart move on the part of the framers of the Constitution.
Do you feel we've done enough? I was going to get into something else, but on the back of what you just said, do you feel we've done enough to safeguard our Constitution? And here's the angle I'm going to take it from. You would realize that in the Ivory Coast, or in Côte d'Ivoire as they prefer to be called, Alassane Ouattara has tweaked the system to have a third term. We see that in many other African countries, and there are so many different things happening. We have not had such an experience, and yet people still look at the Constitution and wonder whether it is still fit for purpose after 30 years. Like I cited earlier, some will tell you about political party funding and what our Constitution says versus the reality about certain public sector officers and what they ought to do when they take public office and what is happening, declaration of assets among others. These are very problematic areas. Article 71 office holders and
of which I am one, by the way.
Exactly. How do you reflect on them? In recent times, and I'm putting a whole number of things together, the president, when he was appointing you, said there have been calls to sort of quash the NCC, that this body is no longer relevant. How does that resonate with our Constitution, and how relevant is the NCCE to that process, to Ghanaians and to our democratic practice?
Okay, so you've asked several questions, and I'll try and unravel them.
It's a yarn of a yarn of questions.
The first one is about the Constitution and the the public discussion around how to fix it moving forward, because a lot of people feel that there are bits of it that is broken that needs fixing. I mean, even if you...
Do you agree?
Oh, it's not my place to agree or disagree.
You're a citizen of this country. What do you think?
Pardon me?
You're a citizen of this country.
No, but if I speak on the Constitution, I speak as chairman of the NCC, and as chairman of the NCC, I do not have a strong position on this, because it must be about the will of the people. And so as NCC, our angle really is to ensure that the voices of all Ghanaians go into whatever changes we are going to make. It's really not about us saying this needs to be changed and that needs to be changed. We can facilitate those discussions. We can create the platforms for those discussions to happen. We can participate in those discussions, but it's not really it's not our place to really call.
It's not in your purview.
No. I don't think so. I think that, first of all, you must understand that our mandate is an education mandate.
Right.
It's not a mandate of going to do assessment of Constitution to decide what's in and what's out. And the education mandate really enjoins us to ensure that people understand the Constitution. Therefore, if there are going to be changes, then we have to ensure that people have an input into the changes. And so as to the specific things that need to be changed and all of that, from the point of view of the Commission, I don't think we have a strong opinion on any of it. Personally, if you ask me, I would say that primarily issues around the election of heads of local government, I think that is a strong one from all the information that we have gathered. And we have gathered a lot, NCC was partnered with the commission set up by President Atta Mills to start the work around the Constitutional Review Commission.
You mean the Constitutional Review, 2010?
Yes, in 2010.
Right.
NCC did the work of pulling people together, town hall meetings, and all of that, did the logistical work around that to ensure that there was maximum participation and that the voice of the people was actually, part of the final document. In the last year, we did a lot of work around the Constitution as well. We had a national dialogue on the theme. We had several engagements in the regions on the same theme of changing the Constitution, or amending the Constitution. And we had a roundtable to look at the white paper that came out of the constitutional review process that was subsequently shelved. So we've done a lot of it, a lot of work. And so from all that we've done, the one thing, I can mention a couple of things that keep coming up, or wherever we speak to Ghanaians. One would be election of heads of local government. I think that is a very important thing. That is actually surprising to a lot of people, considering that Ghana is considered a fairly established democracy, at least in our sub-region. It comes as a surprise to people that in spite of all of that, the heads of local government are still appointed,
right.
you know, and
I hosted a would-be politician only yesterday, and she was talking about the issue. But I guess the point most people would make is, wouldn't the politics of the major political parties, NDC and MPP, devolve there? But I usually say that, look, it's there already. It's staring us in the face.
But this is the other thing. If we are going to practice a democracy, political parties are a core part of that arrangement. The architecture of a democracy involves, or of a multi-party democracy for that matter, involves political parties. And so this thing about how, we don't want the poison of the political parties to spread, I think it's, we need to really look at that point of view again. The political parties are the political parties. We elect them. No political party in this Fourth Republic has imposed its will on anybody. These are the people that the people elect. These are the parties that the people elect. And we must respect that. We must respect that. I mean, if we are going to be in a democracy, we should respect the rules of the game. If we say, for instance, that, then maybe we need to do some work around the political parties so that when a party wins power, they come a certain democratic culture that, infiltrates throughout the system of governance. You understand? We can think about that. I think there's a lot of work that can be done in the political parties. There's a lot of improvement that the political parties can benefit from. But to say that, to act as if the political parties are the problem in a sense, in that sense, I think it's we're missing the point. It's not we're missing the point.
Right.
But because if it's not these political parties, it will be some other political parties. As long as we are practicing a multi-party democracy. Do you see what I mean? And
even if it isn't the political parties, it will be people affiliated to them in some way.
And I hope that we'll come to that point in the discussion where we talk about the roles that we all have to play, the responsibilities that we all carry, because the democracy will not build itself. It's the people who will build it. The governance does not automatically become good governance unless people are involved.
Right.
So maybe later in the discussion we'll come to that.
We'll sneak it in. It's been 3 decades, though, just to stay briefly on that point. 2 questions. It's been 3 decades of the 1992 Constitution, January 7th, so we mark Constitution Day and all of that. Ordinarily, the lifespan of a constitution, there are places where, there are frequent changes. The UK has its own very fluid system, and written constitution doesn't mean it's not written at all, but they have their own system. Would you say after 3 decades, it is fitting to go back and reflect? And do you think with what happened in 2010, I am one of those who feel that was an opportunity missed, because I read a lot of what the committee came up with, the commission, I beg your pardon, came up with. And then I saw aspects of the white paper and it left me a bit flabbergasted.
Exactly.
So 2 questions. After 3 decades, ordinarily, there will be so much evolution or change.
No.
Wouldn't any democracy have made some changes already? And did we miss that opportunity in 2010? What do you think?
Well, to the extent that the work was put in, the money was spent, and nothing came of it, it was a missed opportunity. But it's not
What more do you think we could have done with it?
What more we could have implemented the things that we found out. We could have actually gone ahead and effected the changes. But it didn't happen. So yes, it was a missed opportunity, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of that road.
Right.
30 years is also a good time to reevaluate how far we've come, to look at what we can change. And at this point, if we are going to do any work, that work that was done in 2010 should be a core part, because that work was very comprehensive. You know, the report was very comprehensive, collecting all the views of Ghanaians from across the country. And of course, even from 10 years ago, a lot has changed. Yeah. So even those recommendations might be, we need to subject that to some review as well. So there's a lot of work that can be done, should be done, because there's no time like now. You know, it should have been done in 2010, it wasn't done. I mean, we've come to a point, a critical point, which is 30 years of the Fourth Republic. It's a time for reflection. It's actually a good time to relook at it and say we can tweak this here, or we can change this there, or whatever, and get on with it. But it is time for that.
All right, 30 years. So the NCC and the 1992 Constitution are like conjoined twins. Your birth
mother
was around,
and child.
Exactly. Around this very same period. You came actually on the back of the 1992 Constitution. But would you say 30 years on, the NCC has lived up to its billing, has lived up to expectation? On the back of, sometimes as a journalist, when I go around, the things I hear, some don't know what the NCC is. Those who know think you're not really doing anything. Others think you're doing something but not enough. Have you lived up to the billing?
Okay, so first of all, I think that because the outcome of the work of the NCC is an intangible, it is very easy to dismiss the institution. You understand? It's not the institution where you can count bridges and schools, or concrete that has been poured, or trees that have been planted, or anything like that. Because this is an institution that works on the minds of people, and it's very difficult to count that. But we can look at some things in terms of the work of the Commission and the democracy that has held for 30 years. The fact that at the beginning of the Fourth Republic, the Commission was set up, and 30 years down the line, we still remain a republic. You can have a certain relation, you can have a certain correlation there. The fact that the work that we do is highly decentralized at the community level, and a lot of things go into holding the peace and keeping the country together. And a lot of that work that we do are things that people don't see. They're not glamorous things, they're not flashy things. There are things around calling communities together, solving problems, reminding everybody of their rights and responsibilities, doing arbitration, working with the political parties, for instance, to help us stay on a stable course around the time of elections. These are things that the outcome is normality. The outcome is peace. The outcome is successful elections. The outcome is normal life. So it's very difficult to count.
Perhaps things we take for granted?
Yes, we do take it for granted because we've had it good compared to our neighbors. So we do take it for granted. But the Commission has actually achieved a lot.
And I was just about to get to that, so tell us about some of them.
Has achieved a lot. If you look at the programs that we do, the programs, the flagship programs that we do, you will realize that we have actually impacted people fairly positively. But right off the bat, I have to say that, of course, we have not worked at our full potential. That this is an institution that has barely scratched its potential.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, we'll come to that. But the thing is that we have been part of the success of the country's 30 years of peace and stability. The programs that we run, Constitution Week, like what we started now, every Constitution Week, we engage security forces. We engage the soldiers, the police, armed forces, all these groups, people who wield guns officially, and we remind them of the democracy that we have all committed to. Who knows what would have happened without those reminders? You can't tell. But every Constitution Week, for years and years and years, we speak to these people. We know our history. We know where we are coming from. We know the roles that different institutions have played in our story, in our governance and political story. And so these continuous engagements, it helps in keeping our country together. During Citizenship Week, we engage students. We go into the classrooms, and that is just a special week. We do have classroom engagement as part of general work, but during Citizenship Week, we go to classrooms. We take upstanding members of society. I'm sure you've been in Citizenship Week before. If not, please note him for the next one. We take journalists, doctors, teachers, and we work with them, interacting with students, so that it's not just about us saying that this is how to be a good citizen, this is how to be a responsible citizen, but it's people who have come through the system and are in a better position to advise the young. We've done that a lot in every year. We have civic education clubs in schools, and these clubs, through these clubs, we are able to get at least the in-school youth to, be civic-minded. And even though in terms of the civic-mindedness skill, there's still a lot to be done, it's not a completely hopeless situation. Given what we've had to work with, we've managed to do a lot. Currently, we have over 5,000 civic education clubs around the country in the second and third cycle institutions. If you look at the number, it's woefully inadequate. But there's reasons why we can't even have simple things like clubs that we actively engage with in all schools. I mean, ideally, if we had civic clubs in all schools, it would be more impactful. But
has there been an attempt?
Oh, it boils down to logistics, because we are set up to actually deploy it if we have the resources to be able to do it. We are working to see civics brought back into the curriculum, because if from day one of stepping into a school, every child, every term, every semester has a civics course that they do, right up until the end of your undergrad, right up to you get your undergrad degree, it will go a long way, because building mindsets is not something that happens overnight. It's not a campaign that you can just run for 6 months and then it's done. You must be committed to it, and you must do it consistently and invest consistently over. You must have a long-term view of, at least medium to long-term view of the outcome. So if you put all of this in context, Commission has done quite well over the years.
It's interesting you bring that. Studying in Cuba, one thing I got to realize was that some may call it propagandist, that country being semi-socialist. That's how I describe them. But they fed the minds of the populace right from youth.
Absolutely.
About this agenda of the country.
Yes.
And positive or negative, it was bought into. I mean, everyone had a very concrete idea of...
It's not a negative.
No, I'm just saying, depending on who is reflecting on it.
I know I'm coming in because you say Cuba and sort of semi-socialist, but it doesn't matter the type of country.
Right.
Every country that is a powerful country today has employed, has been able to deploy education programs. And it doesn't matter whether they are left of center, right, or communist, capitalist, all of them.
China, Singapore.
The US, the UK. I mean, the UK have built a brand out of what?
Yeah.
Out of what exactly? Out of the
Such
ideas.
a small country.
Out of the ideas about themselves, what they tell themselves about themselves and what they tell the rest of the world about themselves. They've built a solid brand just around that. And it's all ideas, big ideas.
What brings to mind, before we get into your challenges and not achieving your full potential, like you said, I remember one of your deputies at a point, I think, I don't know how many years ago, whether it was last year, was talking about values and all of that. Sometimes I sit down and I pose the question on my show, what does Ghana stand for? What are our values. What the Americans would talk about the American dream, and we're the place where you can come from anywhere and make it. South Africa will try to paint itself as the rainbow country where it's a melting pot of cultures. What are our values, core values? I asked that question from the standpoint of, if you asked, if we went out there right now and spoke to young people especially, maybe some of us, yes, we've been around long enough, but young people especially, I shudder to think what some of them would say. What is your take on that, and how much more can the NCC do?
I think that our core values, we find elements of our core values in our national anthem and the pledge. So for me, that's the starting point. Going back to the national anthem and starting to use it on a daily basis, because the words count. The things you say about yourself to yourself make a difference in how you see yourself and how you see the world. We must, go back to the fundamentals. I think where we derive our values from are the values that we find in the national anthem and the pledge. So the fact that if you go out on the street and you ask people, they may not be able to identify what you. It's a huge gap, and it's a gap that, as NCC, we have to take some responsibility for, because at the very minimum, people should have an idea of this. But we have had our challenges over the years in terms of the way how we are able to work. But it's not a lost cause. It's a thing that we must jump on and start pushing extremely aggressively, particularly now, the way the world is. It is important to have clarity about what a society holds dear, the values that we want to uphold, and the way we want to live our lives. All across the world, there's confusion. All the big things that we thought were immovable are moving. The way the world was structured, the relationship between states that we had a certain assumption about, is no longer the case. And in all of this, it is important now to define for ourselves as a country what it is that we stand for. What is our own enlightened self-interest, for instance? What do we stand for? What do we want to promote? What do we want to achieve? It is time to go back and clarify those things and push it hard so that all Ghanaians will be looking at a common vision and working towards a common vision, for that matter.
I just want to quote the words of the Ghana national anthem here, so we take a look at it. And of course, many people forget that there's more than one stanza to the national anthem. But let's just stick to the first, since we're talking about those values, and pick out for me what you feel, because that is what we use. God bless our homeland Ghana, make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. Fill our hearts with true humility, make us cherish fearless honesty, and help us to resist oppressor's rule with all our will and might forevermore. Here's what I see looking at this. Our nation, some would say strong should even come before great, but it is what it is, great and strong. I feel we could have been a much greater nation after 66 years, but who knows? Bold to defend forever. I don't know whether we've been bold in managing our national resources, in putting ourselves on that pedestal, judging from where we were in 1957 and the sort of aura we had globally. Freedom and of right. I could go back to some of the recent dynamics when it comes to assessments by the United States, among others, where we are in terms of freedom of speech, among others. As for humility, I'll leave that out. Fearless honesty, resisting oppressor's rule. We find ourselves in the throes of neocolonialism, a world where neocolonialism is at its peak, just as Nkrumah predicted. What then would you say we have done on this front? Just very briefly, you've already answered the question, but since you mentioned the anthem, I wanted to put it back to you.
I don't want to dwell on what was done and what was not done. I want to dwell on the fact that these are the values we must be actively promoting from now on.
Right.
So, that's the angle I want to take. But what was done, what was not done, we are where we are. We know the situation we find. Yes, it is what it is. We know the situation we find ourselves in. Bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. Fill our hearts with true humility. Make us cherish fearless honesty.
Are we an honest people?
That's my favorite part. Make us cherish fearless honesty.
I think it's the most melodious part. And make us cherish, and people butcher it. A lot of people even sing the wrong lyrics, but that portion especially.
And help us to resist oppressors' rule.
I dare say we are not a very honest people. I dare say.
My position in all of this is that we must work towards it. We must work towards it. So the things, I mean, as at 30 years, while we are trying to change the constitution, we must change ourselves as well. Yeah. We must recommit to the values of the national anthem. You know, so it's not just the constitution. A lot of times we like to externalize blame for the things that go wrong and things that are not happening. In this whole conversation around 30 years, there's very little said about how do we change ourselves? How do we become a better people? How do we assess ourselves as individuals, as families, as communities, you know, as opposed to that constitution that is on the outside, you know. So it's a good time to look at that and recommit to the values that, you know, form our national anthem. And I like to focus on that going forward. And what do we do as a people? How do we work to ensure that these things resonate with us? How do we become passionate about these words and commit to push till we get there, you know, or till we get to as close to the ideal as possible? How do we become a people who are known for fearless honesty? How do we become people who are positioned as people who will resist oppressors' rule, so that oppressors will think twice before they come near us?
Right.
You know, so we must gradually.
It's progressive, isn't it?
Yes, it's progressive, and we must build these things back into daily life. You know, what does this mean for me at work? To be fearlessly honest. What does it mean to resist oppressors' rule? What does it mean for a teacher? What does it mean for a bank manager? What does it mean for a politician? What does it mean
for a media person?
For a media person? What does it mean for a child? You see, we must translate these values to go beyond the beautiful, inspiring words into things that we live out in our daily life.
Right.
So you wake up every morning, and the words shape how your day evolves or how your day pans out.
Let's talk about the challenges of the NCC. You spoke about not achieving your full potential over time, including within your tenure. And of course,
tenure has barely started.
You spoke about, well, you're about a year into it.
No,
so,
not even a year yet. So
from June, right?
Yes.
We're in May. You're a month shy of 1 year. So at least, I think for now, if you were a few months, but the challenges, you mentioned logistics earlier, and that is common knowledge.
Yes.
But from where you sit, what have been the challenges that have hobbled the NCC?
So it's common knowledge. Again, people don't understand the depth of it. And the fact that this commission has been systematically defunded from day one.
Defunded?
Yes.
How so?
Underfunded, deprioritized from day one. You know, and marginalized as well. And we see the effects of that now. So sometimes when you say that, when people say, they are not funded, they don't even think through what does not funded mean. Not funded means that there's an office somewhere out there in some district where there are no chairs and tables. I mean, if you translate the not funded into literal things, the picture it paints is pretty horrendous. Computers, tables, chairs, bicycle, motorbike. You know, imagine going to your office and having to figure out your own table and chair. You see, so the level.
Well, some poor students do that.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Yes.
We've covered incidents in the Pandai district, 7,000 desks deficit. Yeah. At least we got some action on that.
Yeah, that as well. But what I'm saying is that,
but that's not to justify what is happening.
Not at all. But what I'm trying to say is that when we talk about not being funded, there's more to it. It translates into real challenges.
People don't really understand.
People don't understand the real challenges that it translates into. It translates into, sometimes you don't have paper. It translates into, there's a big hole.
Has that happened since you've taken over?
Hopefully not. No. We've had paper, we've had paper. We've had paper. We don't have pickups and motorcycles, but we have paper. So. Okay,
all right. At least I guess you're one of the luckier ones there. Right.
No, but this is very real. If the situation is going to be fixed, we are coming from such a low level that it will take a continuous investment over years to get us to a respectable operational level. But even with this, and I always emphasize this, even with all this depravity, the staff are some of the most hardworking people you will find in this country, dedicated and committed to the work that they do. And you know that because the conditions under which they work will put many people off, many people off. Every time we recruit, within 6 months, a good number leave because the conditions are so poor, it becomes very problematic. But they work. There are people who were talking about the civic education clubs. So in the district is supposed to have a number of clubs. And every officer must have a certain number of clubs that they have oversight of. So we have to do things like, because we don't have a motorbike to go to the far reaches of the district, each officer will have to go to the schools that they can walk to, for instance. So schools around where you live and schools around the office. And they are literally walking from school to school to get the job done. They are walking from community to community, from farm to farm to get the job done. They are arriving.
This is a labor of love.
Yes,
I've heard similar talk from the NDPC as well.
Yes, they are arriving at work dusty and sweaty because they've walked for miles and miles to get to where they have to go. You understand? And so, and yet in all of this, able to do great spectacular work, but definitely only scratching at the potential because we could do so much more. We could be part, if properly included, we could be part of the transformation of this country to its glory,
optimal
that we
level.
are all, optimal level, that we are all yearning for so hard. We could be part of that great story if properly included, and we must start looking at that. The whole world, and something, the issue of civics, interestingly, is something that the whole world is coming back to, because the countries that we talked about that invested in deliberate civics, particularly for the West, post Second World War, put a lot of investment in this American dream you're talking about, this ideal, who is the ideal
look at
American?
The Scandinavian countries, look at what they've done.
All these things, the investments were done, but if you look at those countries, and you see those that are having problems and those that are stable, you will see a clear trend of those that systematically defunded their civics programs and those that maintain them. It's very clear, So the investment, you can't run away from it. There is no other way around it. You can't get it done any other way.
Talking of that investment, just quickly on this point, what is your budget like in a given year? How good is it? How much is it meeting? I want us to be very practical.
No.
Are you meeting 10% of what your expectations are? Recently, we were talking about the APFA from the PIAC report, the APFA areas where there are certain allocations that are not being met. What is it like realistically for the NCCE?
When I joined the commission, I used to wonder at the figures. I used to think, this has to be a mistake, because if we are sending this amount of money to a district for a month, then I don't know what we are doing here. in the last few years...
You best believe it. I heard something similar for social welfare. We can't discuss it here.
You know, but when COVID happened, I think it served as a bit of an eye-opener. Because once COVID happened, and the country was in a panic, and we needed somebody to go around and do the public education, an institution that is purpose-built for that. In many countries, they now had to find people. They now had to find people, train them, do that. In Ghana, NCC was good and ready to go. And so we were tasked to undertake the public education. But then it was immediately realized that, oh, these people have the men and the women. You know, they have the human resources, but that's about it, you know. And so even transportation to go around, because you know how COVID was, one had to go down to communities, and because COVID was so new and, you know, was so fearful, especially in the beginning, it was important to leverage the trust that has been built by our district officers because of the way we are structured. And that trust became, you know, a bridge to be able to, you know, deploy the COVID information and get, you know, a good uptake as we did. So after 2020, we did much better on the budget level, because I think at that point, it went beyond people saying NCC has no money. It was now they could see what is not well resourced, what it meant in reality, and how it hindered work. So after 2020, we did better. But last year was not good, because last year, once the economic crisis, I guess when they are looking at priorities, maybe we will not be foremost.
How much was budgeted for the NCC last year? And how much came
through? I think that we started off with a approved budget of, I think it was about 13 million or something like that. These are approximations. They're not, yeah. And then it was reviewed downwards to about 8 million.
That's already about 5 million shaved off.
Yes. In the long run, last year, we received, I don't want to make a mistake, maybe, let me say a minimum of 2 million. Maybe more, but I can say that.
So ballpark figure. We understand. Ballpark figure.
Ballpark. And so it was a difficult year, as you can imagine, but it was a difficult year for the whole country, for all the government agencies. So it was one of those years. This year, we've started off on a slightly better note. Our approved budget came to about 6 million, but unusually, we got a release in the first quarter, and we're getting a release.
I like how you say unusually.
Very unusual.
You usually don't get it.
We usually don't get it.
Okay.
You know, we usually don't get it. The first releases will come further down the line. But as soon as the year started, we got our first quarter release. Okay. And then we've actually seen our second quarter release on the system as well. So year on year, you know, maybe a little bit of progress with dips, but generally speaking, getting better, hopefully.
So obviously a whole lot more has to be done in that regard.
The amount, 6 million, it's woefully inadequate. It does not begin to scratch the surface of our needs.
So let's hit the nail on the head on that. From where you sit, you've been here. You've been here as a deputy. You've been here as the chairperson.
Yes.
How much averagely, if you had to do, look, I grew up watching some HIV ads and a whole lot of things that back then the NCC was backing. We don't see them anymore. We've seen spikes in our HIV levels in the country in recent years. There are so many areas where people say, even on the political front, we have to be doing. We're entering an electoral year, and that's a question I'll be putting.
District level elections.
So, what then would be appropriate, optimal, looking at the work the NCC can do to ensure that you're able to, you know, meet your optimal levels?
So let me tell you what will be helpful. So, for instance, we are not sitting here demanding that give us money to buy pickups and motorbikes, for instance. Just give us the pickups and motorbikes. You will go and find it and bring it to us. we are not about, so the reason why I'm saying this is not, it's not really about the money, it's about giving us the resources. During COVID...
Do you collaborate though with the Information Services Department?
Yes, we do, but let me make this point.
You use their stuff sometimes, right?
No, they use our stuff.
They use your stuff,
yeah,
right?
as well. So during COVID, what I talked about the difficulty that we ran into. There were some pickups that had been bought for another institution, but were given to us and we're able to work with it. You understand? So our thing is not to go about mentioning money, because a certain amount of money will be unrealistic and dismissed up front. But give us...
What if?
Yes.
Another twist. What if you could ask and it would be given?
Let me tell you, give us the equipment that we need.
Okay.
Give us the equipment that we need.
Cars?
We need pickups.
So
we need
motorbikes. Specifically motorbikes.
We need accommodation, office accommodation. In a lot of districts, we are housed in the assembly, but in many districts, we are renting. In some districts, you can't even find a place to rent, or what you can find to rent is really not fit for human occupation. You understand? Even this building, right? When it rains, the office that I used to sit in before, it literally rains in the office. Because is
that office still in use?
Yes, it's in use. The deputy chair still sits there. Yes.
So that person has to face that situation now.
Yes. So when it rains, you get out of the place, because it's scary to sit there during the rain. So if we are going to cost all of these things, but fix the building. You see what I mean?
I get your point.
So
provide us with what we need.
Give us what we need, because we want to work. It's not really about give us so much money and all. We want to work. What do we need to work? We need transportation, we need accommodation, we need computers and chairs and tables, so we can work. If you think that calling the money will become, a back and forth, just give us the things that
About how many computers, for example? Let's just focus on one. How many computers, laptops would you need, or desktops?
So how many districts do we have? I don't think that we have computers in even half the districts. It's too, you understand?
Right.
So
I get the picture.
Yeah, so it's a lot of computers.
We're looking at around 300, right?
It's a lot of computers. If we had one computer, even one computer per district, we'd be able to say that, work is a computer with a printer, but so majority of districts don't have them. Majority of districts don't have a pickup or motorbikes to be able to, because, our work is outreach, it's community work. We can't sit in the office and work. You understand?
I get it.
Yes, so we have to go out there. We can do a lot of work on social media now. It's picking up. We're doing more and more there. We can do a lot of work through the media. We use the media to propagate our messages and all of that. But at the end of the day, in many parts of the country, it boils down to meeting people, building trust, so that you'll be able to, so that the messages that you give them, they will take.
Yeah, it will resonate with them, and you need the logistics to do that.
Exactly.
Let's cap off the conversation talking about governance issues.
Okay.
I've saved this for last. I would like to start with you have a fellowship with the National Endowment for Democracy in the United States.
Yes.
And congratulations on that, by the way. But when you look at that vis-a-vis our press freedom ratings, for example, over the last 2 years, they've taken a tumble from 62nd to 60th. We've been dipping a bit, 30th at a point. I think the best we've had is 2015. We placed 22nd within the last decade or so. So 22nd in 2015 to 62nd, that's a 40-point decline. We can talk about corruption. And it's become pandemic in our country. It's not just, I remember the finance minister himself, Ken Oforiatta, some time back saying that we lose between 4 and 6 billion cedis, every year.
Yeah.
Some have said that if we're able to stem the tide, 22% of the public sector wages go into unearned salaries. People don't earn them. There's a lot going on. What do you have to say about these? And what role can the NCCE play?
The NCC can play a role, but what I'd like to say is that every other institution must also play their role. This is a country that is not lacking in laws, that is not lacking in rules, that is not lacking in definitions of consequences for the things that go wrong. We should all just do our work. We should do our work of educating the public. We cannot arrest anybody. Those who must arrest, must arrest. Those who should prosecute, must prosecute. You know, those who should speak up, should speak up. We must all do our work. And that is what I see when it comes to this thing. Because everybody likes to talk about the other person who is not doing their work, or the other person who should be doing this. We are always trying to identify, you know.
We like to push the buck to the next person.
We all have responsibilities, you know, in the republic. You know, in the social contracts, we all have roles. You know, if you are going to pay your taxes, then you better be demanding accountability properly.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
That is the relationship in the social contract that forms the basis for the democracy. The taxpayer gives up an income. They elect a government. The government is supposed to provide certain services and account to the people. We have systems for accountability. We need to activate and use them. This is not a country where we say we don't have laws for corruption, or we don't have laws for people doing this or that. We have all of them. So we must all be up and doing. And everybody must do their job.
I totally agree. And I only brought it to your doorstep because we're interacting with you now. But let me ask you this, again on governance, not as NCC boss, as a Ghanaian. We've knocked on the doors of the IMF 17 times. Some people do not realize, but the British went once to the IMF under certain conditions. I believe some 40 plus, 50 years thereabouts. They learned quick lessons, never looked back. We have gone time and again, and we've been warned. This administration, past administrations, when we are on the precipice, we always
know.
Get here.
Yeah.
What do you think about our economy and moving forward, the things we can do? Again, as a citizen, not as NCC.
First of all, you must know that I cannot speak as a citizen as long as I'm sitting in this chair. You must know that. When I speak,
you can choose to detach from that. You don't necessarily have to speak as NCC.
My opinions are attached to the commission. But you are right. There are many structural problems about our economy. For years, we've been saying the same thing. We must move from just agriculture to processing. How long have you not said that? Didn't they say that you were in primary school? Yes, we must stop.
We're almost tired of hearing that.
Yes, we must stop exporting raw cocoa and raw.
We must process our gold.
We must process our gold.
It's interesting how Switzerland processes most of the world's gold, where they themselves
don't produce any. We must refine our gold. We must process our cocoa. The things we must do. I don't think any country has better articulated the solutions to its problems than we have.
Right.
So we know. And so whenever we pick a path, we know exactly where it's heading, because we know the situation we live in, and we know how to fix it. You put any panel together and talk about the problems we have and the solutions. There are a lot of people who can very smartly articulate all of that. So again, I say that we must all be up and doing. If yours is to ensure that people do the right thing, please ensure that. Ours is to ensure that people are educated. In the context of what we are given, we must ensure that our conscience is free and we do the best we can under the circumstances. And that, for me, is the thing that drives me. I don't like to talk about the resources issue a lot because it gives the impression that we don't get anything done because we don't have anything. No, I always say that we do the best with what we have. We do the best with what we have. We don't get funding only from government. We get funding from donors sometimes. We are currently running a major project on preventing and containing violent extremism, which is a big problem in our country now. When you asked about governance and all that, I wanted to use this opportunity to identify a couple of things that I think are a threat to the democracy. You know,
maybe we can look at that briefly.
Yes, very briefly. But that for me is the most important part of this conversation. And the first one being the monetization of the politics and the governance. Because we have monetized it to a point where now it's almost like democracy for sale. It's dangerous for us to go down that path. It's not right that we have to make huge demands on politicians, for instance, who are seeking public office. You understand? We go into a vicious cycle. We demand, and they have to find ways and means of supplying money for funerals and all kinds of other things in their community. Because if you don't provide the funds, you'll be kicked out. So where the monetization has really pushed us to not a great place as far as the democracy is concerned. Right. The other thing that we are really playing with that is so dangerous is galamsey. You know,
that was the very next thing I was going to ask you about, because for me, my heart breaks, and we have a few minutes to digest these issues, but you look at our river, our water bodies. We grew up seeing them in textbooks and the rest.
Looking pristine.
You can't imagine them now. And even on the Volta Lake, now some people, whether sand winning, there are activities that are, even the beaches. People are winning sand from the beaches.
Yeah.
If tomorrow, God forbid, there is something and the waves come, the same people will be affected. You can't look at the Nkobra now. You can't look at the Pra. You can't look at the Brim. All of them, the Tano, have become...
it goes beyond, for me, it goes beyond the muddy pictures. It goes to health and security.
The food we are consuming.
Because we are consuming food that is being grown with this water that is contaminated. And in the areas where the mining is happening, we're already seeing some, signs of health problems that will hit us hard once the kids that are being born with. But the most important thing is the security threat as far as galamsey is concerned. The thing, it was the search for diamonds that fueled the war in Liberia, and it was the illegal mining of diamonds, which then led to warlords and exchange of guns.
I actually lived in that country around that time, so I know exactly what happened.
And we are not far from that. There's a thing called blood diamonds in this world.
Sierra Leone.
Typical, why is there a thing like that? Because something terrible happened. Do we want blood gold in this country? Is that where we want to head? Because if you persist with galamsey the way we are doing, it's a direct road to Liberia and Sierra Leone of the 90s.
Disaster. Kathleen Addy, what next for you at the NCC?
Oh, the NCC is going places. That much I'll tell you. We have great plans. We want to really embark on this fight for the minds and hearts of people, the fight for the hearts and minds of Ghanaians. We want the values that, at the very minimum, we find in our national anthem to guide us in our daily life. We want those values to guide us in our daily life, and we want our country to achieve its full potential. And we think that our role as civic educators is critical to the success of our country. And we are here and ready to work. And we are committed to Project Ghana and to ensuring that Project Ghana succeeds.
Right.
This country is great. I mean, we come into countryhood.
Multidimensionally great.
We come into countryhood with so much. There's no reason for us to be the way we are right now. You understand what I mean? So yes, we have great plans at the Commission to do much better. I mean, we are constantly engaging government to ensure that they understand where we are coming from and that they see us as a partner that will help every government succeed. When you have a people who are enlightened and educated and people who understand their responsibilities, it's easier for a government.
Right.
So we have a lot of work to do, but we are up to the task. And as usual, we are doing the best we can with what we have, always.
Kathleen Adi, we're grateful that you took the time to get interactive with us, and we can only wish you the very best on this journey as you lead the NCCE, hopefully into that next era of greatness. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Right. And that has been an interaction with Kathleen Adi. She is chairperson for the National Commission for Civic Education. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for watching.
Hello, good morning. It's a beautiful day. Thank you for making time to be with us here on the AM show. Now, the Foundation for Security and Development in Africa, FOSTA, is alarmed and worried by the unemployment rates released by the Ghana Statistical Service under the Labor Statistics Report. Now, the Statistical Service says 25% of young people between 15 and 35 were not in employment, education, or training. FOSTA is, among other things, asking the National Youth Employment Strategy to address this issue of youth unemployment on a long-term and comprehensive basis. This morning, Theodora Anti, Executive Director of FOSTA, joins us for a conversation on this. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining the program, ma'am. Trust you're doing well.
Yes, good morning, and I am doing very well, thank you.
Right. Let's delve straight into the issues here. The statistics are terrible. Okay, we know how things have projected over the years. There were so many interventions that came into place to ensure that we will be out of the woods by now when it comes to unemployment. But it appears that the numbers keep rising, as we've seen with the latest Statistical Service report. You are concerned. You are actually suggesting, and I'm reading from your release, that urgent short-term measures with long-lasting effects be taken. Run us through these short-term measures that you hope government will take.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers as well. I will run you through some of them, but of course, we all need to contribute towards that. But our concern is based on the security effect and impact of youth unemployment. Not youth, but youth unemployment. The situation is a scary one and an alarming one in a time when security in a sub-region of West Africa is so chaotic, and we have a lot of challenges with security. And the recent UNDP journey to extremism points youth unemployment as the primary factor for radicalization and participation in extremist groups, is the primary factor. And so at a time when things are hard and we are having a lot of young people, as high as 25%, 1 out of every 4 young people, not in education, not in training, not in employment in our country, is a very worrying phenomenon. And we think that if we don't do anything about it, if we don't take intentional measures to arrest that situation, definitely that number will be going up next year, and we will not be in a very good situation. And so we have also been working, promoting technical vocational education. We have been advocating for more investment in that sector. And we acknowledge that government has done, and governments over the years, of course, have done a lot to reform the sector, to improve the sector. And I mean, we have over 34 TVET institutions refurbished in recent times. But we are saying that that is not enough. That reformation process has been too slow, and we need to do a lot more. We need to invest a lot more into the technical vocational sector. We understand that in that sector, when young people or people who graduate from that sector are almost instantly employed. And so if we focus on that sector, we are very likely to churn out more or higher youth employment numbers. And we are also looking at that sector. We are proposing some short courses, and thus some of those short-term, but with long-term effect courses that will help. Some short courses that will help people acquire some short-term skills that they can build upon, but will give them some employment in the very near future. And definitely we also need to look at the education and industry, the bridge between the education and industry. There has been the challenge for so long about the mismatch between the education sector and the industry sector. And we need to look at that. We believe that a youth unemployment policy will be able to fix that problem, or a youth unemployment strategy, contextualizing our situation, knowing who we are, where the future of work is going. Between now, 5 years, 10 years, where is the future of work for Ghana? That's the talk now. Where is the future of work? What are we going to be consuming more of? Or what are we going to be more interested in as a nation? Are we going to look more at our ICT sector? Just yesterday, I saw a beautiful young girl in SHS producing some airplane or something like that. Are we going to look at that sector as our future? Are we intensifying our agriculture sector because we are always going to eat? Are we intensifying our services sector? What is the future, and how are we matching that with education and training that we are churning out our young people? So we believe that we need very, very deliberate efforts to be able to reduce the numbers. From next year going, we should not be seeing such high numbers again.
Do you see
those numbers?
Sorry, but do you see any of these deliberate efforts that you're talking about? Are you getting a sense that we're on the right path? Because some of these things that you've mentioned, for example, STEM education, the government has introduced that. You just spoke about TVET education, and the drive government is on to ensure that a lot of people are trained with technical skills. We have the Youth Employment Authority, we have other interventions, youth in agric, and so many of these things. So the deliberate effort you're talking about, do you see it happening?
We see the effort, but how deliberate it is, or is it that it will change? It will change the situation is what we don't see. So, like you mentioned, we have seen that an institution like the YEA has spent over 1 billion in the last 3 years on youth employment. Why are the figures so high when you hit the streets? We have seen that NAPCO trained 100,000 young people, and per their own reports, about 34,000 of them have jobs now. Why are the numbers so high when you hit the streets? And so the efforts are great, good interventions, national entrepreneurial innovation plan, good interventions. But are we implementing these things to change the situation? Are we implementing them efficiently and effectively? We did a research some time ago that showed that a lot of these interventions are being, let me say, it's political party youthful soldiers that are benefiting from some of these interventions. And you have one person benefiting from YEA, benefiting from NAPCO, the same person. And so when the figures are churned out, they look huge, but on the ground, it's almost insignificant. And that is what is at play.
But what did you also discover, sorry to interject, in that research you just referenced, what also did you discover about the level of training they receive? Because, yes, giving it to a politically aligned person is one thing, but are they receiving that training that allows them to be independent of government after the training? Are they being made entrepreneurial enough? Do they have the requisite knowledge and skills? Did your research focus on that?
That is another problem, because most of these young people, mostly political party projects, when they enter these things, they don't even participate. They just end up getting the benefits and they are off to another one. So most of them on the payroll are not even participating. We heard of NAPCO, great intervention, great idea, but how many of them really got jobs? How many of them really got offices? How many of them really got opportunities to work? Most of them went to sit in offices and never did anything. Most of them never even got posted. I know a few people who never ever got posted. even though they were part of the 100,000 people, even though they were being paid every month, they didn't get posted, they didn't get jobs. And so the quality of those training is it has a lot.
It's questionable for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, how will you measure, 10 being the highest, how will you measure government's efforts, not only a policy as a document, but actual efforts in ensuring that unemployment is dealt with strategically?
That's a difficult question, because if you measure based on the interventions that have been put so far, you know that 85% of top tax go to youth and youth employment agency, for instance. 85%, that's a huge amount that goes to them. So when you look at the phase of interventions that are being put in place, you can give them 8/10. But when you look at the implementation of those policies, real implementations of those policies, these recent statistics speak to it. It speaks to what we are doing, whether we are doing it well or we are not doing it well. It brings out the reality on the ground. And with that, you give maybe 1/10 or 2/10.
Right. We had the finance minister a while ago speak to young people and say, look, don't look for jobs in the government sector. There are absolutely no jobs. You must be entrepreneurial. You must look for other opportunities. And considering that, and considering all these interventions we've mentioned, which are government-related or government-sponsored, and based on what the minister himself said, we know that there is some level of private sector participation, but should we be looking at giving a chunk of even these things? Talk about the training, for example, because if it's in private hands, I mean, I doubt that it will be as politically or partisan as we see it to be currently, based on your research and others. Should we be looking at probably a very large chunk of these interventions going into private sector, private hands? Do you believe that we will see better numbers if we do that?
So after that research we did, we started advocating for a more efficient system of selecting some young people for some of these interventions. We saw a few of these institutions using private partners to do the selection over time. It went well for a year or two, but I'm sure we've gone down the drain again. So private sector works. But just last week I heard the private sector, that is corporate Ghana, complaining bitterly about those 3 taxes that were posted and how that tax is going to impact. And I heard that just right after the statistical service brought out there, and my heart, because this is a private sector that is employing and that will employ, and yet they are all crumbling. They have threatened that they are closing down because those 3 levies will bring them down. They will lay off more people. Even their gross is being taxed. So how are these private sectors going to fare? And that is why we are saying that if we don't do anything about this now, we are going to be in deep trouble by next year. We have, I mean, like I said, with regards to the security sector, this is somebody, as we always say, we are sitting on a ticking bomb, and knowing also that we are having elections next year. These are the situations that feed vigilantism. These are the situations that feed extremism. And so a lot more, government must do a lot more. And let me also just mention, for those who doubt it, I've mentioned this in a few places and they asked me to bring the evidence. But young people now, yes, the minister was right, they shouldn't look to the public sector because young people are paying to get jobs in the public sector. People are paying between 9,000 to 15,000 to get jobs in the health sector, to get jobs in the security, to get jobs in the public sector. When windows are open, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, you will not get the job. You watch your brother or your sister who have that money pay and get the job. And so the public sector, and it's supposed to be the biggest creator of jobs for our people. So how much can the private sector do when they don't have the enabling environment to do that? So a lot depends on our governments.
I'm not going to sit here to pretend that you're the only one who feels the degree or the level of seriousness of this matter, because we sit here every day, we speak to people. Take Galamsey, for example, and how a lot of unemployed people are getting involved, making the fight more difficult, and also the threat of terrorism, and how we've been told over the years that unemployment is fertile ground for terrorists to begin work, indoctrinating, providing the needs of these people and getting them on their side. So in wrapping up, I'll just like you to send that message to those responsible for making things work in this country. If you had 2 minutes to send them a direct message, what will it be?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And it will be that we are sitting on a time bomb. We will be having more young people. Now we have around 60% of our population being young people. This number will increase steadily over the years, and we'll have more young people. And if we don't do anything about that, not about the young people, I always say, but about the situation of youth unemployment, it will blow up in our faces. It will blow up in our faces. We have Mali, we know Mali is burning. We have Burkina Faso that has over 80% of its country given to extremists and terrorists. And we have Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, all surrounding us, all under attack from violent extremists. We are not safe. We are not a golden country. It's not that it cannot happen in Ghana, but we must do the right things. We must do the right things to make sure that we protect Ghana, we protect our people. And most of all, I employ that we don't politicize youth employment opportunities. We don't politicize them, and we don't commercialize them. People should not be paying to get jobs. It is so wrong. It is so wrong. And those are grievances that push people into terrorism and things like that. We should not commercialize nor politicize. These interventions, we admit, are great and should be done effectively, should be done efficiently. The money we are pumping into these youth employment interventions, we should see the figures, we should see the numbers we churn out, and not just some figures, cooked figures that when we hit the ground are so different from what we see on the papers. So both as a people, we must demand accountability from our leaders, from our institutions. We must be checking this NAPCO. Who is benefiting? Why? Who is benefiting? How much are they investing? Are they investing the right figures? How much really is going to that, and where is the rest of the money? We must demand accountability. Young people must demand accountability because this is about them. And we must also, our leaders must learn to do the right thing. We should care for the young people and care for our country. Thank you.
Dora WRT is Executive Director of Foster, and they have been raising concerns about the latest unemployment statistics from the Ghana Statistical Service and how that could lead to security issues in the country. Foster is the Foundation for Security and Development in Africa. You're watching the AM show. Benjamin Akakpo will be joining me shortly, and we get interactive with you. Do stay.
We get to tell you all about driving and staying safe, as well as ensuring that fellow road users also stay safe. How do you do that? When you drive safe, then you ensure that everybody is safe, everybody is secure, once we're doing the right things on the road. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. This is Drive Safe. I am here at Top Tech Transport and Logistics with their CEO, Cecil Gabra. Hello, Cecil.
Hi, Ben.
It's been a while.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I think this time we can shake hands.
I guess
scared.
We are not using masks, so we can. It's no longer mandatory, so we might as well shake hands. I hope you've been well.
Yes. I've been well, very well.
Right.
Just managing with every situation that comes across, whether you like it or not.
I can see that. Well, today we're discussing the causes of road crashes. We've started 2022, and in the first quarter, you should see the figures we are getting. Not as high as last year, but close. We're still in the thick of a lot of road accidents. What are the causes, and how do we prevent some of those things? You'll be finding out right after this. But like we usually do, we get into our other bits. So you think you know? Are you sure? Let's check out today's road sign and find out just how much you know. All right, so at the tail end of today's segment, we'll find out what that road sign represents. But let me get back to Cecil Gabra. We're exploring the causes of road crashes. And I want us to start from the angle of, I know the Okada situation has become something else now. There are new arrangements for a lot of them. But motorcycles and tricycles, I'll share with you a story. Where I come from, practically every day, you would see at dawn, motorcycles, tricycles, especially the tricycles, the ones that carry all kinds of things, including rubbish and the rest. And at dawn, they are moving without any light. So it means if you are not watching carefully, or if your light is not up, you will not spot them before you realize, accident. Let's get into some of the causes of road crashes.
Definitely, what you're saying is very true. But before I tackle that issue, I just want everybody to know that when we talk about road crashes is not an issue where you always blame the driver, right? But then 90% of accidents that we're talking about comes from we human beings. 90%. 5% is caused by the engineering of the roads. I mean, we always
have bad roads.
Precisely, or maybe sharp curves or something has gone wrong on the road. Okay, you don't blame it on it. Another 5% goes to mechanical errors. That is, errors on the vehicles, errors on maybe motorbikes and so on could cause those.
Your brakes fail you.
Precisely, but that is only 5%. But the major issue is 90% of the accidents are caused by you and I, human beings. Okay, so if you want us to talk about Okada, let's talk about the Okada issue today. I'm talking about motor riders, tricycles, and bicycles.
So when you talk about motorbike riders, all of them, not just Okada.
Yes.
Not just those who are doing it commercially. It also includes private users of motorbike.
Private users, right. Let me just, let's just sum it up.
We're lumping all of them
precisely.
Together. Right.
Let me start from bicycles. When I was a little boy, right, 6 o'clock, you cannot ride your bicycle without light.
6 p.m.
Yes, 6 p.m. It's a law. It's still there. The Airline 2180 addresses it. That don't ride when the weather changes. Okay, that's to done. Okay, so 6 o'clock now, you realize that many people are riding bicycles without lights. That makes it very dangerous. I live off the Spinters Road and I see a lot of accidents almost every evening because if somebody is riding, he sees you, you cannot see him. Right. I want the law enforcers to add that to it now. And then first of all, I think we need to sound a warning to all the bicycle users that you cannot use your bicycle if you don't have lights in the evening.
But this is common knowledge, but it appears people still take the law into their own hands. You don't need to know LI 2180 to know that
precisely
when you are riding at that time, because visibility is so poor, you should have your light on. If you don't have your light on, you expose yourself.
You're very right, Ben. Try and have a chat with those bicycle riders and then you'll listen to what they'll tell you. You have the greatest insults in your life. Right.
Have you attempted speaking?
Oh, I have several times because, I mean, even last night it happened just right in front of me. Somebody was crossing me, riding a motorbike when I was just about joining the Sprinters. And then this is it. Right. Motor riders are doing it. They are riding without lights in the evening. Tricycles are doing it. And then talking about motor riders, I feel when we do the statistics now, the issue of motor riders in accidents may come down because most of them are no longer using it for the usual Okada that we talk about. And when I say Okada, they have a pillion rider behind them. No, now
that is conveying people.
Yes, they are not conveying people. Now they have changed, and then thanks be to companies that are employing riders to be dispatch riders, where you have their bag behind them and they are going to, dispatch. That is fine. But again, they don't think about the road regulations. When they see the red lights, I have pictures, I have videos, and then you see out of about 20 motor riders, only 2 will wait for the green light.
But in that specific instance, I'll bring in the law enforcers themselves, police officers. I mean, I recall only recently, a few days ago, I was at, how would I reference, the traffic light before you cross to, what's the name of this place? You know, when you leave the multimedia group, you take the Atenka and heading toward trying to connect from Aboakyir Junction to the N1. You see the police training school. The police
Tesano.
Tesano, that's the name. The traffic light before you get to the Tesano, training school. A police officer comes. So this is what happened. Some motor riders come and stop because they've seen the police officer come there. They don't want to get into trouble. It's still red. The police officer only stopped because some people were coming from the other end. Once there were no people coming, though we were still red, he went through and the others followed him.
Yeah, so that is it.
So, I mean...
So if the law enforcer is doing the wrong thing...
Exactly.
And that also comes to the issue where you find a law enforcer driving in the middle of the road.
Right.
Right. He's using his private car. He's wearing his uniform, whether it is customs, whether it is immigration. They feel they have the right of way. And that is so bad. So if you are doing so, others will also emulate your example and do similar, which is so bad. But talking about motor riders, I think if we have all of them obeying the traffic regulations, that's the lights like we see in Togo, right? We're going to go a long way to reduce the crashes on them, because at the moment, just like you and I know, statistics on motor riders crashes is still on the high. Rather, commercial vehicles are on the low.
Right.
Right, and then something must be done immediately, and this goes to our law enforcers that we need to. And I always talk about, and I said it on your sister station that we need proper enforcement. If the police cannot do it all, we need to borrow the military police. I've said it several times. Okay, that's the red cap guys. They should team up. What are we looking at? We are looking at one goal to reduce the crashes and make sure that human lives are saved. That is what we're looking at. So motor riders who are not using their lights, tricycles and bicycles, my major concern is bicycles, must be arrested. The laws are there.
Okay, so that is the first point we're going to be focusing on. And that has to do with these riders, all of them together. Motorbike riders, whether commercial or private, bicycle riders, tricycle riders. The tricycles are also dangerous. They're always trying to, get ahead of you, cut corners, and sometimes, and maybe in our next segment, we'll talk about how sometimes they create or cause accidents because of the slow nature. They are carrying so much, it leaves a lot of people frustrated. You try to, overtake them, and it's another wahala. But that will be for our next segment. Thank you so much, Cecil.
You're very most welcome.
All right. We're wrapping today with, so you think we started with our question for the day. Do you know this road signal? Well, let's find out whether you got the answer correct. And on that note, if you didn't know, now you know. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for joining us on Drive Safe. Have a great day.
And that was Drive Safe, brought to you by yours truly, Benjamin Akakpo. He joins me in studio because it's time to get interactive with you. There's a lot to talk about this morning. We've been talking about the pensioner bondholders who are
They're back.
threatening back. Yeah, I hear they're going 10 a.m. every day. They've not been paid as government promised. We've also been speaking to the NCCE's
Kathleen Addy,
who's been sharing a lot with us. Then we had a conversation about unemployment and its attendant effects, especially on security. And then we brought you Drive Safe. It's now time to get interactive with you. The number to call is on your screen, 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691/2. And we will be excited to hear what you have to say about all the issues that we've discussed. But guess what? There's another thing you can share your thoughts with us on, which is the VGMAs. A lot has been happening since that event. People, Benjamin, sharing their feedback about the MCs and how
outfits,
and how some of the MCs were not so on point. They spoke about outfits. Kwabna's own, was one that I saw a lot on social media. It raised a lot of
King
eyebrows.
Promise, the Terminator look, and some of the hosts themselves. I don't want to get into that.
And then also the awards. The one which generated a lot of talk that I've seen is the Artist of the Year award, which was won by Blacko,
21-year-old.
21-year-old
I listened to a conversation
on
is it Showbiz A to Z? And right before that, the commentary about what the expectations were. And from time to time, you'll get that unicorn because there's been a certain pattern. Established players in there winning, Stonebwoy, EL, SAC, and all of that. But all of a sudden, almost out of nowhere. So
and also because
you could call him.
we had seen a lot of support being thrown or being canvassed for PSA Esther, who won Gospel Artist of the Year. Media campaign, social media, even the Church of Pentecost, where she's a deaconess at, posted on its official page asking members to support. So there were those who felt like they had seen her visibly put in a lot of the hard work. But some of these things, there are some people who work like under G, because we didn't see the kind of media campaign she did. Like we didn't see Blacko do the same thing, but he won it. And there are those who say, the people who work underground, they may not be visible in your face. But again, let me just say this before.
I think Blacko's team too may have some, but you make that point.
Yeah, and the point is about what PSA Esther's single campaign did for the entire program. And I'm not the only one who thinks like that. I've seen people who believe same, because until then, I didn't even know the VGMAs were coming up. I'm sorry, I didn't feel the hype around it like it was in previous editions. But when she started the campaign and the push and, all those things, I felt like,
it's going down.
Something is happening. And so I think that she must be congratulated for her effort and even the belief that she could win. I mean, who would believe in yourself more than
It's a two-way street, though, even as we look forward to your calls. In recent years, there had never been a gospel artist winning, Artist of the Year until Joe Metal did it. Okay. Then we saw Diana Hamilton, Pip Kiddy painfully, and he came back the year after that. So I think quite some inroads have been made in that regard. Right. But this is always going to be the scenario. Secular music versus gospel music. It will always clash head on. At least now, we have a certain front where gospel music is making those inroads, and you can expect a gospel artist every now and then to get to that point. This time it was PSA Esther. Let's see whether next time she'll be luckier.
But I must commend Blacko. I asked this question. I told somebody, does he write the music himself? Because look, I studied literature and English.
I don't think the artistry, when you listen to his sermons, I don't think it's possible to... The fluidity, exactly.
But I was curious, because for a 21-year-old, like talking about mystery boxes, for example, these are not things you hear a lot of people at that age even say, and then he strings it together.
He's a unicorn. He's different.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's about the experience. Sometimes we downplay that. Konongo Zongo, or Zango, as we probably should say it, among other things. I think sometimes when you look at young artists who do really well, look at their story. Oftentimes you would find something in there that is a hook. It's a larger than life experience that makes them into who they are. And I remember interacting with the Swiss ambassador, Simone Giga, and she made mention of the fact that when she had interacted with Blacko, or Black Sheriff, she had also got that saying that he thinks far beyond his years. And I'm not surprised that
let me tell you,
that reflects in his
Let me
music.
tell you a line in his song, Soldier, that resonates with me. He says, my own anxieties, my inferiority, what? You know, because it's just so many things that sometimes fight you as a person and make you feel a little down. And then he comes almost as if he just got a jolt of encouragement and says, soldier, soldier, stand and beat your chest, you know. Don't let them catch you off guard. Don't let them touch your skin. And I don't know, many people I've met can identify with that song. And it relates whether you're a pro-gospel or whatever, especially on that one song, the Soldier song. It's such a motivational song. It just does something for me when I hear it. It's almost like, you know, don't just do it. You can do it. You know, just get up and do something. But don't let them catch you off guard. Don't let them catch you off guard.
I mean, it's something that, you know, now saying don't let them catch you off guard reminds me of that bit about a presenter that has been viral. Don't let them catch you off guard.
Don't let them catch you off guard.
You know, this morning, doing the news, something went
similar happened
in there. And I had to, doing this work,
yeah.
Sometimes it's crazy.
But once in a while, when these things happen, it shows you the humanness. Because there's so much perfection around what we do. I remember again, and we'll be wrapping up shortly. Unfortunately, no call has come through. I think we may have a problem with our lines. But I saw Richard Quest on the CNN, and I was shocked. I had to rewind it and watch again. So he's just about to go on air, and there's a makeup artist or a costumier or someone who is trying to dust off something on his jacket. And then he goes like, he's shrugging his shoulder to let the woman I'm on air. She crawled behind him and it all happened. But he managed to take it to. It's just the humanness of what we do. So
there was a day my laptop fell. What? It is what it is. We do what we do for God and country.
Exactly. And sometimes when you're caught off guard, not in a negative sense, but it's what it is. You're human. So yeah.
But it's been good. Start to the week. It started with my glasses getting broken, but you haven't noticed.
No. I'm so sorry about that. Sorry about that. But you'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
Soldier.
You know, see.
Stand and beat your chest.
Then they come.
All right,
That's the note on which we wrap the AM show this morning. Thank you so much for your company. I love your dress, by the way. I have to say that.
Yeah. And
Venice,
is there a birthday wish?
There is.
Right,
there is. I know I'm going to... Okay, so let me quickly get to this. I hope I find it. It's from Amo. I believe I sent it to her call. There it is. So, good morning. Please kindly wish my sister Eunice Gloria Mensah of GCB Bank Nungwa branch a happy birthday for me. It's from Amo. He is with our camera department. I nearly forgot that you would have killed me, Amo. Happy birthday to you, Eunice.
All right.
And have a good one.
All right. And to anybody celebrating your birthday or whatever anniversary it is,
happy birthday to you.
God's blessings and peace. It's now time for us to exit for news desks to start to stay. You get all of the analysis on what's happening currently, news making rounds. That'll be it from us. Take care. See you again, God willing, tomorrow.